Today, the White House revealed all the details of the preparation and execution of the United States attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. Donald Trump reported the day before that the United States had completely destroyed Iran's nuclear program by delivering precise and powerful strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. And today, the White House and the Pentagon revealed all the details of the preparations for the truly historic United States strike on Iran's nuclear program. As it turned out, it had been in preparation for many weeks, if not months, and the White House knew about its inevitability long before Israel began its attacks on Iran on June 13th. Moreover, more than 100 United States Air Force planes took part in the operation, and the redeployment of most of them was just a diversion, like Saturday's transfer of several B-2 Spirit bombers. The entire operation to destroy Iran's nuclear potential was carried out in full coordination between the United States and Israeli armies. And now Washington is directly telling Iran that it's time to surrender and sign a peace agreement. Otherwise, things will only get worse for Iran itself and, importantly, for its partners. But how the United States operation called Midnight Hammer was prepared and carried out, I'll tell you about in this episode. My name is Alexei Pichi. Today is June 22nd. Let's go through everything step by step. But before we start, I ask you to subscribe to this channel, like this episode, and leave any comment you want. Also subscribe to my Telegram channel, Pichi News. The link to it is in the description of this video. So when B-2 stealth bombers with 14-ton bunker buster bombs were already preparing to take off at midnight on Saturday from their base in Missouri, heading to Fordow, Natanz, and Isfahan, American President Trump was still at his golf club and showed no signs at all that a powerful strike against Iran was being prepared. But he knew for sure that another group of planes, the one we discussed yesterday, was heading west toward the Pacific Ocean. And this was a deliberate attempt to mislead, since Trump demanded complete secrecy. Those planes weren't going to attack anyone, but they took off as a group toward the Pacific Ocean in order to confuse. And at that time, another group of B-2s took off in complete radio silence to the east, and it was this group that later carried out the strike on Iran. Exactly 24 hours later, Trump was already in the basement of the White House Situation Room, wearing a red cap with the slogan, "Make America Great Again." And he was watching as the strikes he had approved a few days earlier, codenamed Operation Midnight Hammer, were unfolding in real time on the monitor wall. Already on Saturday at 10 o'clock p.m. Washington time, Trump declared, "Tonight I can tell the world that the strikes have been an impressive military success. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they don't do this, future attacks will be much larger and much easier for us." Now, in the White House, they're already openly saying that Trump's statement gives Iran another 2 weeks. This statement was a trap and matched the mission's attempts to divert attention. This is a tactic meant to conceal the plans for this attack. As reported by the White House, by the end of the week, United States officials concluded that Iran was not ready to return to the negotiating table and reach a satisfactory nuclear agreement after European leaders met with their Iranian counterparts on Friday. I also talked about this on my YouTube channel. In the end, Trump's 2-week public deadline lasted only 48 hours. The operation began at midnight Eastern Time on Friday, when B-2 bombers took off from Missouri on an 18-hour flight, which became the longest mission for these aircraft in more than 2 decades. Well, the last time something like this happened was after September 11th. This was stated by United States Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, and next is a very important quote from Pete Hegseth, which explains a lot. Quote, "This is a plan that took months and weeks to develop and prepare so that we could be ready when the President of the United States calls. This required great precision, it involved disorientation, and the highest level of operational security." That is, Pete Hegseth is directly stating, yes, the strike on Iran had been prepared for a very, very long time. This is not something spontaneous. Today, sources in the White House state that options for the United States to enter the war on Israel's side against Iran were discussed by Trump's team even during last year's election campaign. And actual plans were developed several months before the attack. And the United States President's national security advisors have already managed to resolve their disagreements among themselves regarding which options were presented to him for the elections. a week before Trump gave the final order to American stealth bombers and Navy submarines to strike 3 Iranian nuclear sites. Trump held daily briefings with his national security team in that very basement situation room to discuss attack plans and assess possible consequences. And so, as American media report today, quote, Trump came to the secret negotiations with 2 main concerns: that the United States attack would be decisive and destroy the well-fortified sites, including the underground uranium enrichment plant in Fordo, and that any actions he took would not drag the United States into a prolonged and deadly war, which he had promised to avoid when he was a presidential candidate. On the first point, officials were confident in the ability of American bunker-busting bombs to penetrate the facility, although such an action had not been tested before. However, on the second issue of a prolonged war, officials could hardly promise the president that Iran's retaliation, which could include attacks on American assets or personnel in the region, would not drag the United States into a new quagmire of war. But nevertheless, Trump still decided to attack. And today, for example, it is reported that according to 2 sources, the United States did inform Iran during unofficial talks that the strikes ordered by Trump on Saturday would be limited and that no further strikes are planned. Like, we struck, you stay silent, and there won't be a big war, we'll avoid a big war. However, Trump's public statement on Saturday evening after the strikes, which warned of much larger future United States attacks if Iran responds, still highlighted the unpredictable period he is entering in the Middle East. But why are they now saying that the attack was being prepared for several months? The thing is, let's break down the entire chronology. Back in April, Trump gave Iran an ultimatum regarding a potential nuclear deal, warning Tehran to make a deal within 60 days, that is, by mid-June. At the same time, Trump publicly called on Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to refrain from attacking Iran in order to give the negotiations time and space to show progress. On June 8th, that is, less than a week before Trump's 60-day deadline expired, he met with his advisors at Camp David, where he was presented with potential options regarding Iran. The next day, Trump and Netanyahu spoke on the phone and approved a course of action. And so, on the 61st day after Trump's ultimatum, Israel launched unprecedented strikes against Iran, targeting its nuclear program and military leaders. Let me remind you, on June 13th, when Israel began its attacks, it was exactly the 61st day after Trump's ultimatum. After that, Trump made the following statement, quote, Iran should have listened to me when I said I gave them a 60-day warning, and today is already the 61st day. And then, an outright show for the public began. The United States repeated every day that Washington was not involved in the attacks on Iran, while at the same time, Trump's team was already planning those very attacks. Israeli officials have already admitted that the very start of the military campaign against Iran initially assumed that at some stage, at a certain point, the United States would eventually join this war. And many operations by the Israel Defense Forces to neutralize, for example, air defense systems, missile complexes, and so on. They were actually the prerequisites for the United States to come in, you could say, when everything was ready, and strike the nuclear facilities. Before the Saturday strikes, the United States gave Israel a warning that they were planning to attack Netanyahu. He held a 5-hour meeting with top Israeli officials, which continued during the American strikes. After that, Trump and Netanyahu spoke again on the phone. And the Prime Minister of Israel, in a video address, praised the United States attack, stating that it was carried out with full operational coordination between the Israel Defense Forces and the United States Army. And here is another important point for you. The United States also notified some of its partners in the Persian Gulf about its readiness to strike Iran in the coming days. That is, countries like Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, possibly Qatar, Oman, and Bahrain knew about the preparations for the attack. They condemned the war, they said that Israel should stop, but at the same time they knew that the United States of America was preparing to strike Iran. Moreover, there are American air bases in Saudi Arabia that have been flooded with American aircraft in recent days. And so, at midnight on Friday, the operation began and lasted until Saturday morning. The head of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Kane, said that B-2 bombers took off from the United States, some headed west as a decoy, while the rest quietly proceeded east with minimal communication. During the 18-hour flight, 7 B-2 stealth bombers participated in this unprecedented United States operation. In total, more than 125 aircraft were involved, including B-2s, tankers, reconnaissance planes, and fighters. And so, according to Kin, it was around 1700 hours, that's Eastern time. An American submarine launched more than 24 Tomahawk cruise missiles at key ground infrastructure targets at the nuclear test site in Isfahan. And now, as they say, satellite images have already appeared showing before and after this attack. Shortly after that, at about 6:40 post-meridian Eastern time, or 2 o'clock ante-meridian local time in Iran, 2:10 ante-meridian to be exact. At that time, the lead B-2 bomber dropped the first 2 bunker buster bombs on the Fordo nuclear facility. The B-2 attack as a whole lasted only half an hour, after which the American military bombers began their journey home. And what's remarkable is that, according to Khan, Iran did not fire a single shot at the United States planes. And this is very important, because yesterday we were just talking about how Israel had preemptively cleared out Iran's air defense systems. This made the sky over Iran completely open and you could say even safe. As soon as it became known that American bombers had left Iran's airspace, Trump announced the attack to the whole world. Quote, "We have completed our very successful attack on 3 nuclear facilities in Iran, including Fordo, Natanz, and Isfahan. A full set of bombs was dropped on the main Fordo facility." Well, as you can see, it's foolish to assume that the United States operation was being prepared during Israel's attacks. That is, supposedly, they only started thinking about it after June 13th. No, it was planned long before that, and the start of Israel's operation against Iran on June 13th. That was just the first stage of this war, which at a certain point the United States was supposed to join. But otherwise there would be no point in Israel's attack. Because Israel doesn't have stealth bombers or bunker-busting bombs capable of reaching the facility in Fordo. And without its destruction, the entire operation loses its meaning. So Israel has fighter jets and they have bunker-busting bombs, which unfortunately are too weak to penetrate such fortifications. The Americans, on the other hand, have both stealth bombers and those very guided bomb unit 57 bunker-busting bombs. And accordingly, what's the point of starting an operation if you know you won't be able to break through the nuclear facilities? That's why I'm saying that the United States was definitely involved in this military operation from the very beginning. So obviously Israel was supposed to clear the airspace and then the Americans would come in. But I'll leave it at that for now, friends. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell, and don't forget to like. If you want to support the work of this channel, you can do so with any donation using the links and details in the description of this video or by using the quick response code on your screen. That's all for now. Take care of yourselves. Goodbye, everyone.